the mentality, and we have to come with it, and trying to find a way to win this game.
What have you seen from them so far in the first couple times you played them or whatnot? What have you seen from them that you anticipate maybe changing pace? Sometimes when you are that familiar, you can kind of overthink your prep and maybe try to do a few too many things and try to do a few too many change-ups. But you've done this before now, and this has been a while that you've been playing for the Stallions. So how do you anticipate trying to attack this group, and where do you think they might have some vulnerabilities?
Well, obviously we know they're a physical front. Man, they have a few guys got selected into the UFL all defensive team, so we know their defense is pretty solid. That we know they hone in on their defense and try to stop our offense. But like I said, it really just comes down to execution, man. Because obviously they know what we're going to do, and I feel like it's going to come down to our playmakers making the plays and our defense, stopping them because Bryce Perkins coming back for them. They got a high-powered offense with a few good running backs and receivers. So I feel like it's definitely going to be a challenge for us. We're obviously not going to take them lightly because, the record of them saying, obviously we are the top dogs against them. So we want to keep it like that. And at the end of the day, we know they're going to have their ears back, ready to come, I have to put up a good fight up there and protect it. I feel like we'll be ready.
Deion Kane with us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Stallions wide receiver. They're taking on the Michigan Panthers in the USFL divisional playoff game coming up Sunday. Live at Protective. Get down there, check it out if you can. Skip Holtz seems like a guy that just sort of never changes. It's the same demeanor. It's the same verbiage. It's the same message. But have you seen anything different from him this year, last couple of weeks, and maybe you did the first couple seasons, first couple games you were with him?
I mean, by far, this probably was the most, I ain't gonna say difficult, but just different side of Skip I've seen just from the previous years because of obviously I know he's a quarterback whisperer. He's always in the quarterback's ear. Quarterbacks and Skip are basically like the offense and things like that. So just to see him and how the way how he handled fluctuating through all the different quarterbacks throughout this year, and to still be in the same position where we wanted to be. I mean, it's a great thing, man. And Skip is a great coach. He knows how to get men together, be able to compete, come as one. And, he has a great philosophy that everyone is buying into. So, obviously it speaks for itself. He got championships. He got great records going into the collegiate league. So, I mean, it works. Everybody's buying into it, and we all just really try to hone into them. So, we come back home and host that trophy together.
Well, Deion, you got one more, Greg? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think just the excitement of being able to chase another championship. Is there a burden knowing that you've won 3 in a row? I mean, it's amazing to think what's been accomplished for the Stallions over the last few years, but sometimes heavy is the head that wears the crown. And I can't imagine it's going to weigh you down. It hasn't, at least in the last 3 championship runs. But do you feel an extra sense of pressure, an extra sense of motivation to keep this thing going?
Yes, sir. Mainly more just motivation because obviously we're chasing something that hasn't been done before. And, obviously this is a new group. This is not the same team that we had these previous years. There's new guys coming in. So we're all chasing to previously, to hold that trophy on so we can have our name in that history book together. But to also add on to the dynasty as well, too. So, I mean, it's definitely been a goal of ours from the start of training camp. So we're just glad to be in this position order to get to that next step. So I mean, like I said, we still got to finish the week out. Today's Friday. Got another day to polish up and get ready for tomorrow.
Well, Deion, we appreciate the time today, man. Great luck this weekend. Hoping to get a good crowd out there for you guys on Sunday. Look forward to catching up soon.
Nah, most definitely. Thank y'all for having me, man. Let's practice Texas this weekend. Look forward to seeing everybody out there.
There you go. Deion Kane, Stallions wide receiver, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline discussing that playoff game against the Michigan Panthers. And just oddly enough, the amount of times these two teams have played late in the season the last 2 years, it does raise the intrigue a little bit because, Greg, you've got that familiarity of, hey, we know everything they're going to do. We know everything they're going to be, how they're going to operate. But that does give you some advantages altering some things. If you can go find those tendencies that you feel like you haven't broken, haven't been different, and then present those in a game like this at particular times could help you come up with explosive plays, help you come up with game-changing plays.
Well, and you also just know their individual personnel. It's one thing to know the team's tendencies, but if you have played against the same guys over and over again and having done it in the NFL, and you look at, hey, for instance, let's look at Darrelle Revis covering the big receiver for Miami. I'm blanking on his name, but anyways, that was like a remarkable matchup, and it was just a chess match every single time they played. It's like, all right, well, Brandon Marshall, and this guy he loves to release inside. So I got to stay inside leverage for the most part. Like my left hand, if I'm on the right side of the ball, needs to stay extremely active because he's going to try to break across my face all the time. He's going to hit me on slants. He's going to hit me on this. If you're a receiver, you know, all right, he's probably going to shade a little inside. So how can I set him up to the outside to get him to bite to get back to the inside? Like, you know, the personnel and the individual in pro ball is all about matchups, matchup driven offense. And knowing those matchups and knowing how important those matchups can be is really valuable as well. So you just have a plethora of knowledge. You got to make sure it doesn't weigh you down. Let's be real. I mean, you can sometimes have paralysis by analysis, but it's also fun to kind of play the cat and mouse game individually against the individual player that you're matching up with every single time. Offensive line, I would imagine, is something, you know, guys' tendencies inside and out if you played them 4 or 5 times.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking when you were saying that, could that almost work against you a little bit? And I'm not accusing Dion or anybody else on either of these teams. I don't know. I don't know well enough inside and out that it would. But could there be a bit of a, I don't know, an exhale, a sigh of, I played against this guy. Yeah, we're good. Maybe you don't watch as much film. I can see a way it could almost work against you also.
Not in the playoffs. I mean,
you would think not. You would hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the thought process. I have a hard time thinking in a win or go home situation you would take anything lightly. But yeah, I mean, you might. The reality is you might not need to prep as much. Like, you can work a little bit more on getting in the cold tub and getting your body prepared because you already know what this guy does. So sometimes I think maybe less is more in a game like this.
You
like,
don't overthink it.
Let's focus on the physical because you already have so much built up knowledge about what this guy does against me. Then I'm good. I don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of time watching tape. If I can maybe go and get a little stim on a hamstring that's been a bit tight, I can go get in the cold tub. I can go get in the steam room. I can go do this. I can go do that. Then my body might be a little bit better prepared, especially here late in the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun game, a fun matchup. Get down to Protective. If you have the opportunity, we want to put up a good crowd. We want to have a good showing here in Birmingham with the playoffs coming to town. Regular season, I think, was fun. I think it was different this year. Quarterback injuries, I think, hurt it a little bit, top to bottom. Obviously, no team went through more than that than the Birmingham Stallions, going through 6 different QBs. It's just you never really anticipate that that's going to be a real thing. But this Michigan team, man, I'll tell you, Bryce Perkins has really come into his own. They're physical up front on both sides of the ball. They have good offensive line play. Tua Tawa has been a welcome addition at running back after a couple of injuries as well. The Panthers are first in points per game, second in yards per game, first in red zone efficiency, first in offensive touchdowns, and tied for second in overall touchdowns. So that Stallions defense got to step up. Got to have a big game this weekend if they're going to find a way to advance to another championship game under Skip Holtz. So they got the guys that do it. It's going to be a tough matchup. Home crowd would help. So get down there and support the Stallions on Sunday. We're going back to talk more wide receivers around the SEC next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Chris Lowe in 20 minutes. He has been hanging out in Auburn with Hugh Freeze and some of the folks around that Auburn football program. We'll get an idea, his thoughts of where that team's going this year. His mind may be changed to a certain extent of potentially what he thinks Auburn will be, can be this upcoming fall. We mentioned game one of the NBA Finals. Did you watch it last night? Pacers take a 1-0 lead, which is huge because you went into an arena that a lot of people didn't think they were going to get a win in against a team that a lot of people didn't think they'd get many wins against. And Tyrese Halliburton comes up big late once again. Also yesterday on the Diamond, Dodgers take out the Mets 6-5. Yankees 4-0 over Cleveland. Yankees are now 11-2 with Max Fried as their starter this season. It's not the only bad news for the Braves, as last night they go down to the Arizona Diamondbacks 11-10 with a 6-run lead in the ninth inning, Greg.
You mad?
There was a 0.1% win probability for the Diamondbacks.
You love the win probability metric. Is that your favorite?
It was the first time in 766 attempts that the Atlanta Braves had a 6-run lead heading into the ninth inning and dropped it.
To put that in perspective, the Pacers' lowest win probability at one point was 2.6%.
And they didn't lead until Halliburton shot.
Yeah.
Which is crazy if you think about that. How many teams do you think have won a game one and never trailed in the history of the NBA Finals?
Game one and never trailed?
Correct.
3.
Like led outright.
I would say, 1.
Saber nailed it. 3 in the last 50 years since they kept the metric and kept the stats.
It's insane.
So it is to think about. But yeah, it was a weird one for the Diamondbacks and the Braves yesterday, as that 6-run lead going into the ninth ended up paying off big for Arizona.
That's wild. Is that not surprising?
You tell me a baseball game that you've been watching where a 6-run deficit has been on the board going into one at bat left, and you've thought things were going to go well for that team.
I mean, no, you usually feel like you're in pretty good shape with a 6-run lead, but it's just crazy that it hasn't happened in 661 tries.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks came back from 6 runs in the ninth. They were 0-418 all-time when trailing by 6 or more runs entering the ninth inning. Their odds were plus 2,500 to win going into the ninth. They are the first team when trailing by 6 or more runs entering the ninth inning since 2022 to come back and win.
It's still wild. Regardless of how often you tell me the stats, I just feel like baseball deficits get erased all the time. And maybe I'm just...
Not 6-run deficits.
No, you're not wrong. I just remember, what Dodgers-Yankees last week, they erased a 5-run deficit. Mm-hmm. Like that. I just feel like it happens more often now. It wasn't, last at-bat situation. It was over the course. They were at a 5-run deficit in the second inning, whatever it was.
Put it in perspective this way. Since the last time that it happened, teams were 0-1,461 in that spot. That's all Major League Baseball.
That's wild.
And the Braves had won 766 consecutive games when trailing by 6 or more runs entering the ninth inning. The last loss came in. Honestly, it feels like that playoff series against was either the Padres or Cardinals a couple of years ago when they had a couple of leads and blew them, but that wasn't it. It was 1973 against the Mets.
Okay. I feel like Dodgers in Game 5 of the World Series last year. They were down 5
I'm just saying the last time happened to the Braves.
No, I know. I'm just trying to think. I'm just spouting off like random occurrences in which I can remember off the top of my head big comebacks. But you're right. Last at bat, very different. It's just wild. But no, the last time it happened to the Braves, were they in Atlanta?
I don't have that. It's just 1973 against the Mets.
50 years ago. It's a lot of baseball. A lot of baseball has been played in the last 52 years.
If you're looking it up, John, it was July 17th, 1973, the last time that it happened.
It was in Atlanta Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia.
Would that become Fulton County? What was Atlanta Stadium? Honestly, I've never heard that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Tug McGraw was
Tug.
Yeah.
Tim's dad?
His son turned out okay.
It was McGraw's first start since September 15th, 1971.
I asked this question to a friend the other day. I guess a group of friends. Booker McFarland, one of them. We play a game when like a random celebrity pops into one of our heads. We text the group and say A-list or not A-list. And I texted just the other day, probably 2 days ago, Tim McGraw, A-list or not A-list? Pretty big.
There are a lot of A-list characteristics there.
There's a lot. I agree. I have him like fringe A-list. Now, when was his last hit?
I would say it's not a slam dunk, but more likely A-list than not.
They said
okay,
no.
so let me ask you this. On your scale, can you go off and on? Or are you an A-lister? If you reach that status, do you keep it?
You can absolutely go off and on.
I would say was, probably not right now.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, being an A-lister in any field, any demographic, it's fluid.
Yes.
It depends on what you're doing now.
That's true. I don't disagree. So I can understand, but maybe we're a little too close to it. Like I'm a country music fan. And
I'm not, and I can tell you I don't think he is right now.
In particular, a country music fan of the era in which Tim McGraw was throwing out hit after hit. You know, I mean, George Strait, A-list?
No.
I'd say A-list, no, but like country Hall of Famer, yes, but not A-list.
No, A-list.
See, I don't think you're talking A-list in their certain demographic or an A-list celebrity. Like that's very different.
A-list celebrity. Like, are they universally known?
Okay. George Strait walks through this building right now. How many people stop and ask him to take a picture?
Huh. I know one.
You.
Landrum.
He ain't here yet.
Pat.
I don't know about
Pat's
that.
not stopping to take a picture with George Strait. No. I don't think Pat cares that much about music, to be honest.
I don't care if he does. Still
now,
George Strait.
If Harmon Killebrew comes walking down that hallway, he's sprinting after him.
Fair enough.
If Dennis Eckersley's walking down there, like he's probably running with a pin. I think he'd walk right past George Strait and maybe give him a second look, say,
Oh, cool. All right, Kenny Chesney.
Unfortunately, I think a lot more people would stop and ask him to take a picture here. Or you're asking, is he A-list?
I'm asking, is he A-list?
No.
You're as tough a critic as Booger and these guys. Who's A-list for you? Is there a country music star that is A-list? That was the next question. Because if it's not those three, there isn't one. Garth Brooks would be the only other one.
See, I think you're almost referencing all time right now. I would say Garth Brooks is not even A-list right now.
No, I'm talking
what
all
did he do
time.
other than play Protective Stadium a couple years ago?
And you can't sit there and say, oh, well, Lainey Wilson. No, she's not A-list. Not A-list.
Why is he putting these names on me? Have I said any other names?
No, I'm just using that as an example. Like, you're living in the modern era.
I will tell you right now, for me, someone who does not regularly listen to country music, the only one that I would even imagine is on that list right now, and I don't like saying it, would be Morgan Wallen. Because he's the only one that in regular circles of pop culture, I feel like is discussed.
How many people would be able to recognize him? Recognize the voice, know the songs. Walking down the street, you get to dress him. And I'm not talking like in, 1990s baggy Jinkos with soaps or Heelys or whatever, however you dressed back in 97.
Wait a second.
Yes.
Okay, first off.
Starter jackets.
What are baggy soaps?
Baggy Jinkos and soaps.
What
soaps
are
are
soaps?
shoes.
I've never heard of that.
They're skating shoes back in the day.
Yeah, I think those were after our time.
No, they were definitely.
I had one starter jacket in one point in my life. It was a Jet starter jacket. How that came to be, I do not know. I'm probably the only one available for
good choice.
a discount. And I never owned a pair of Jinko jeans. I didn't really wear jeans growing up. I hated pants. Okay,
Stussy,
so
whatever
shorts.
you wore. Like, I mean.
Stussy, what? Like, how hardcore of a skater do you think I was?
You just have a skater vibe to me. I don't know. I've always just looked at Cole.
I did ride skateboards, but that phase ended in like 6th grade, 7th grade.
Okay.
And we wore Vans.
Vans, fair enough.
What else? And Airwalks.
You were also from an era in which skate culture was like a big deal.
Skate or die, man. That was our slogan.
I honestly, like, God's honest truth. like God's honest truth. I'm a Morgan Wallen fan. I like his music.
Well, I'm just saying.
I don't think if you gave me a list of 100 guys and put them out there, and I have to recognize people from 50 feet away, I'm not sure I could pick them out.
See, Steven says George A-list, Timmy as well. Who's he talking about? Biaka Batuka?
Timmy McGraw?
Chang?
Yeah.
Who are we talking about?
Definitely
Tebow?
Timmy Chang.
He says Blake
Shelton.
Corum?
Blake Shelton, I think, does
Griffin.
have some
Griffin.
A-list. I think Blake Shelton is A-list because he's transcended with the voice and all that other
Bortles?
stuff. But then again, like how
You're
many-
right. That might be, and that's not one I had thought about. But see,
That's a good one.
he's
Yes.
over into a different demo. When you guys presented George Strait, you're telling me that he's A-list and dominant in his field, his genre. That doesn't make you A-list.
you have to
doesn't make you an
transcend.
A-list celebrity.
You
In
have to
essence,
transcend.
you got to go pop.
You have to transcend.
One way or another, whether through the charts or some other way, you got to go pop.
You
Think
have to
about
have
other
widespread appeal.
Think about other country artists in the last 20, 30 years that have, like Shania Twain. She
No.
was an A-list celebrity for a while.
Yes.
And that
Yes.
wasn't because she dominated country.
No.
Not anymore. Yeah.
I'm not saying now. No, I wouldn't. No. But was there at a time.
Yes, I would agree.
Who did the song with Nelly?
Tim McGraw.
Yeah. Like I said, he did it for a time.
See, he transcended. He reached a whole new genre.
I said
Yeah,
earlier
because
Tim
everybody
McGraw was
listened.
absolutely
Everyone listened
there.
to the Tim McGraw Nelly collab.
I said he was absolutely there at a time. I just don't know if he's there right now. I think
I'm
at one
fine
point
with
in
it.
time, being married to Faith Hill helped him a lot.
I think being married to another celebrity is definitely beneficial. A-list versus non-A-list is a fascinating conversation.
He was trying because he's done a fair amount of acting.
like, there's
No,
not
Ross
that many.
tried.
the spinoff of Yellowstone, he crushed that
Yeah,
role.
he's
18
tried.
That was like literally made for him. He was awesome in that show.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, made for him.
But he just hasn't had that
Friday
one
Night
thing
Lights.
that's
Yeah, he hasn't had a blockbuster.
right.
well,
yeah.
Friday Night Lights, a
movie
movie.
Uh,
That was a blockbuster. He was the dad.
I haven't seen Friday
You
Night
gonna
Lights
hold
either
on to
one.
that football? I'm gonna teach you to hold on to that football.
Wow.
Don't you embarrass me, son. Get up.
His son had ball security issues.
Yeah, his son was a fullback. Well, we think he was a fullback based
And had
on
ball security issues.
based on
What
what
offense they run?
he might have been a running back to back up Booby Miles. Might have been like a short yardage power back. He was the Mike Allstott of
Sound
the
like they
Permian
need to
Panthers.
transfer across town, get some carries.
You hold on that ball, so hold on that ball.
I need to go watch Friday Night Lights, the movie and the show. I've never seen
The movie's
it.
great.
I lived it.
Which is better?
I never watched the show.
But that's one similar to The Blind Side. I read the book and I kind of don't want. I kind of want what's in my brain to be in my brain. I don't want
Yeah,
to
you
see
can.
it.
I mean, the Blind Side's. You can.
I won't
probably
watch
pass.
that.
Yeah,
The book was too good.
it's
But you
absolute.
take, from what I understand, you take the best part of the book, which is like the first 3 chapters of why The Blind Side is even a thing, and that wasn't even a part of the movie, was it? No. So dumb. If you
Yeah,
ask
but
me.
dude, you need to understand that he was
No,
in a.
put the O-line stuff in the movie.
He was in a car accident and he put his arm to save his stepbrother. That means he's a natural protector. That's why he has to play left tackle for Ole Miss. You don't understand, dude. These
You're
things
right.
matter.
I didn't catch that part.
Yes.
Linemen are your family.
Yes.
Never learned that the entire time.
Correct.
Until the coach on the field savior stepped in and let him know.
That's what you need to realize, though. Like, the
Wayne
ultimate
Corbett was on his
indicator
high
of
school
being
team.
a good offensive line is a natural protective instinct that while in a car accident, you're going to actually try to put your hand over the seatbelt and hold your brother in.
So you're telling me mothers need to be offensive linemen?
They essentially are the alignment of the family.
Yep.
They don't get enough credit. They do all the heavy lifting. At least in my house, they are. The Kenny Chesney one, I would go out on a limb and say I don't think he's ever been there. Not A-list.
Mm.
I think he is for a lot of us because where does he show up? At the beach, college football, and in country music. And there's a lot of people around here that spend a lot of time in those places.
Yes.
But if he's walking down the street in Minneapolis, are people saying, Kenny? No, I don't think they are.
They're saying, can I?
I just don't think.
Can't believe you fumbled Renee Zellweger. Good job.
Oh,
What?
I thought you were a Tennessee fan. Why are you wearing a Florida hat? I don't think they ask him that. Here, yes. Savannah, Georgia, yes.
I just want to know why
Destin, yes.
I want to know why your Minneapolis voice was Southern accent.
I think because
Can I?
it's kind of like a Brian Kelly
Can
thing.
I?
When they see Kenny Chesney, they think, hey, Caney. By the way, because up there, that's not Caney. I could just hear. But I don't think he's recognized like that. I don't think he's ever been.
Yeah,
A-list.
I don't know. I think country music's a tough genre when it comes to like A-list because
I
it's
like
very
this
niche.
game though. This should be a segment on the show. We do this once a day or once a week.
Done.
A-list or not. You got one, John? Come up with one.
I got one that's been somewhat controversial. There's definitely like some
Back and forth.
back and forth. Like half the group thinks yes, half the group thinks no. Eminem.
That's a bona fide no doubter. A-list, yes. Has transcended multiple aspects of pop culture.
If he was walking down the street, my mom would not recognize Eminem.
Okay, but would she recognize?
How often is Eminem in
would she
People
recognize?
magazine?
I'm just being serious here. Would she recognize Jack Ham, or John Ham? Excuse me.
Yes.
Jack Ham.
Yes, she would absolutely.
I'd rather meet
recognize-
Jack than John Ham.
She'd
but
absolutely recognize John Ham.
know who he was, or
Yes.
just know that she knows.
No,
who he
she's
is?
not great with names, so she'd probably be like, "Oh, that's the Mad Men guy."
So Eminem,
That's the guy from
Eminem,
Landman.
You're telling me Eminem without a hat on walks past your mom. She doesn't even say, "That's a guy." That's
I
somebody.
don't think she would. No, I don't. Music's hard. It's generational.
I was gonna say, maybe we need an age cutoff of A-list.
Let's go acting. All right. I think there's a few automatic, no doubt, A-list celebrities in acting. And I think that's the biggest genre. Biggest genre. Like a Leonardo DiCaprio, 100% A-list, never a doubt.
Johnny Depp.
Anne Hathaway, Johnny Depp. Like a handful of like A-list, no doubters, Scarlett Johansson, Ryan Reynolds. I mean, there's a bunch of them, right?
Who's the dark-headed Ryan Reynolds?
I think Ryan Reynolds has
Kevin
dark
James.
hair.
Oh, not Kevin James. The Ryan Reynolds with black hair. He's really good. His sister was in Batman.
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
What?
That's a roundabout way to get to that name. I know. I couldn't remember his name.
His sister.
He's A-list.
First of all, his sister was in the first Batman. The Batman Begins. It wasn't very good and
Don't
was
care.
replaced
Was I right or wrong?
by Katie Holmes.
I knew what he meant.
Tom Cruise, A-list.
Cole.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, A-list. Like
100%.
acting by far has the most,
So
right?
who's a fringe actor A-list?
Walton Goggins.
Don't even know who that is. I know who Michael Goggins is that played defensive line at Auburn.
Look right now. Look up Walton Goggins, who's from Coleman. Or
All right,
from
so
Alabama,
like I'll
whatever.
give you the fringe one that's been dramatic. Like Michael B. Jordan.
A-lister.
I think A-list. I agree.
1,000%.
Oh,
That guy. You can say he's great. He's in a lot of
He's not
stuff,
A-list.
but he's not A-list.
No,
Right? He's like
not
right on the
A-list at all.
fringe.
He's other guy in a lot of movies.
Who is it?
He was in The Shield, right?
Yes.
He's great in The Shield.
Yes.
I love
Baby
that show.
Billy, the guy who plays Baby Billy,
In?
Righteous Gemstones.
Oh.
And
Never
the guy
seen it,
from Vice Principals, like the guy recently in White Lotus.
Who's the one you just asked?
Michael B. Jordan. I think he's A-list.
I am not the one to decide this. I have never seen anything he's
That's
been in.
been the most. That's been
Not a
probably the
single
most
thing.
polarizing so far.
I also don't really go to movies, so
I'm not saying you do, but you probably know who Michael B. Jordan is. He's been in a bunch of movies.
I honestly, if his name was Ron Williams, I wouldn't know who he was. I'm just being honest.
If his name was Ron Williams, he wouldn't be a
Jake
star.
Smith, I wouldn't know who he was.
If his name was Ron Williams or
I just
Jake
think the
Smith,
fact that his name is Michael
the
Jordan
fact that his name
propels
is
him
Michael
some.
Jordan is pretty sweet.
It also, I think, propels him to maybe be more well known than he is for what he does.
I think that definitely helps.
I'm not saying he's a bad actor or anything.
All right,
I would not say it.
We've also come to the conclusion that athletes have the fewest. Athletes
those
are the
very
fewest
small handful.
by a mile. There's not many. Like LeBron, Serena, Steph,
Tiger.
Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, and
Tiger's
that's about
definitely
it.
there. You don't think Federer is there
Mhm.
globally?
Mhm.
This is where some of those soccer guys need to be talked about too. Like, you don't think Ronaldo is A-list? Mbappe?
I mean, yeah, I think Ronaldo is for sure. I think Messi is.
100%. Beckham?
Yes.
I mean, he doesn't really
Not an
play
athlete
but
anymore, but I respect it.
Once an athlete, always an athlete.
Please. Believe me, for the two guys sitting in this room, that is not true. There's not many. Peyton Manning?
Shohei
Yes.
there?
Yeah.
Shaq.
Yes. His name's Dwayne Johnson, or his
Well,
friends call him DJ.
I just don't know if being an athlete is the reason he's there. I mean, how many professional wrestlers have ever been A-list?
He's an A-lister from his acting. He's not an A-lister from
And
wrestling.
most professional wrestlers became actors. That's when they hit A-list.
Correct. John Cena, not.
No, not A-list.
Not. Batista, no.
I'm just asking.
Stop,
I'm
Damian.
asking a serious question here, and I mean this honestly.
Yes.
Was there a time, and not Hollywood, but Hulk Hogan was A-list?
Yes. I think Hulk Hogan is still A-list.
No, not anymore.
Should have heard the reaction
He
when
talked
his
at
last
the
on Raw.
Republican National Convention, brother.
Sometimes your clownness removes yourself from being A-list.
And therefore cements you on it.
But I think he might be the only guy who was there just because of, just as a wrestler. Because he was that big at one point in time.
Probably, yeah.
Mike Tyson.
Not anymore, but was. Removed himself with too many just shenanigan BS stuff. Not there. Have we had an MMA fighter on the A-list?
No.
Conor McGregor never made it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I'm just throwing things out here. Usain Bolt.
No.
Not A-list, no. Shohei.
He ain't there yet.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that we just think is going to be there no matter what, but I don't know if we're talking A-list celebrity, not A-list athlete. It's very different. We forget in our circles how many people don't watch sports. We always rave about how many people do, but there's still a lot that don't. I love this conversation. Can you come up with one of these every day for us?
We can revisit this. Yeah. This is like one of my favorite things. I might have to put you on the text message with me, Booger, Matt, and Jeff.
I would imagine that Boog is the one that never gives somebody A-list status.
I think Boog has said that Jeter is the only A-list guy literally, I don't think
That's actually a good A-list
I don't think
athlete,
there's ever been another one where Boog's like, yep, he's A-list. Yep. Boog is the ultimate contrarian.
Yep. That fits. All right. When we come back, Chris Lowe has been in Auburn, checking in on the program and what it may be this upcoming season. We'll talk to him about it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. Friday, June 6, 826, right here on Jocks 94.5. Appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for listening. Chris Lowe going to join us from ESPN here in just a moment. If you have missed any of our conversations, our conversation with Deion Kane, you can always catch those JocksFM.com on the podcast or on the app in your app store.
Bill said Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. You'll understand why when you take the short drive up to Coleman, you see the deals that they have on the lot. It's off the charts good. You'll really appreciate the experience that you have when you go visit with Andy Cole and go visit with Jonathan Yeager. And you see how they can save you money while getting you in some of the nicest vehicles on the road, like a 2025 GMC Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate, $86,805 is the list price. Take $15,000 off the sticker. You get it for $71,805. It's deals like that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers. It's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take short drive to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. I-65 exit 310, Highway 31 in Coleman. Regardless of what your budget is, they can get you in a vehicle. You can go to that used car superstore as well. They have tons of great options there as well. So take short drive to Coleman. You can also shop online. Have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuick.GMC.com.
All right, Chris Lowe joining us on the Higginbotham hotline of ESPN has been down in Auburn this week visiting with Hugh Freeze, talking to him about the program. How different is your thought, Chris, on maybe what this Auburn football team will be in 2025 after visiting with Coach Freeze, being down around the program, seeing things, hearing things, talking to different people?
Cole, I thought they would be better anyway. I thought, the way they'd recruited and, his third year in the program, they would be a better football team because they weren't, to be honest, if you stand back 1,000 feet away and look at it, they just weren't a very disciplined, efficient football team the last couple of years. They weren't a bad team. They were right there in games against really good teams. But having had a chance to talk to Hugh and John Cohen, the AD, and several of the players, a lot of guys are going to play key roles for them this year. And just sort of getting a better chance to size up what their personnel looks like, some key guys. I think they'll be – I'd be really, really surprised if they don't make – a significant jump as far as wins and losses. Not everybody's going to say, well, heck, they were 5-7 last year. Just going to a bowl game is not enough. And I know you has mentioned something about bowl games, but he's well aware of what the expectations are this year, and for them to be a team going into November with a good record and a team that really nobody wants to play.
When you look at what areas they felt they needed to address, what were some of the biggest priorities for them coming into this season? Obviously, quarterback is one, but beyond the quarterback spot, what did he feel like they left on the table last year that needed to get addressed via the portal or via recruiting?
Yeah, Greg, the whole pass game, quarterback, receivers, complementing guys like Cam Coleman with kids like Eric Singleton Jr., who's a burner, getting the tackle, Chaplin from Virginia Tech, and another kid. So I think that was one of the things up the middle defensively. Linebacker, a couple linebackers, a safety. That he felt like they needed to be better in those areas. But probably right there at the top was just being a better, more consistent, more explosive pass game. And certainly Jackson Arnold's the biggest key to all that. That position. I don't need to lecture you guys on it. If you're not very good, and if you're turning the football over 22 times, which they did last year, worse than the SEC, then it really probably doesn't matter around you what you're doing. You're going to have a hard time.
Chris Lowe of ESPN, the article up now at ESPN.com. You can go find that. We'll try to link that from our Twitter feed so you have an opportunity to look at it. What is Coach Freeze saying about Jackson Arnold and his approach? And we know the talent. We know the abilities there. How does he get this in line? How does he rewire him to a certain extent, build up the confidence to allow him to be able to utilize the skill set that he has in a successful manner?
Yeah, Hugh understands. I think we all probably want do-overs in life. There were probably a few things he said last year in relation to Peyton Thorne, and then early on when they were sort of going back and forth between Brown and Thorne, they threw all those picks that he might have let his frustration get the best of him. But I used to try to be really, really confident with Jackson and want him to continue to compete, Cole, because you got a kid right behind him. He's really talented, and Deuce Knight, the freshman. But he doesn't want him to play like he's looking over his shoulder. I think the thing that Hugh has said, hey, I'm going to spend a lot of time around all the quarterbacks on the practice field this fall, maybe as much as I ever have, was, in his words, they need to be hearing my thoughts, what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking. He's going to call most of the plays, and not all of them. And he might not call every single one. But he said the thing that he has liked the most about Jackson since he got on campus is the way he has really gone out of his way to ingratiate himself to his teammates, defense, offense. He's watched a lot of film. They've thrown all the things you would want a new quarterback to do, and what they were looking for in a quarterback, a guy that could extend plays. I think Jackson had 400 or 500 yards rushing last year, and be able to make the big throws, especially on third down. He's done that, but true test comes, as you guys know, this fall. And he did say something to me that I agree with him on. I mean, last year Auburn sort of had a really sweet opening to the season. I think their first 5 games were all at home, and they didn't take advantage of it. Well, this year 3 of their 5 are on the road, including their first 2 SEC games, are both road games. And he said he thinks it's particularly important that Jackson get off to a good start, not only for his confidence, but all the confidence of the kids around him. Of course, I think they played that Friday game to open the season at Baylor. So I think that sets a tone in a lot of different ways, not only for this team, but for Jackson and their ability to be more efficient, more consistent offensively. Because that's where, when I went into that story, guys, I guess I was a little naive. I thought, well, their numbers were horrible last year on offense. And they really weren't when you look at them. They weren't great, but I think they were 5th or 6th in the conference in passing. They were like one of 5 or 6 teams to average more than 6.7 yards per play on offense. It's just that, 63-yard interception returns for touchdowns, throwing the ball probably when they didn't need to throw it, and having the bad things happen. Those are the things that killed them, and I think that's where they got to be. And he said we got to be a better coach team, we got to be a more efficient team, a more disciplined team across the board. I think that's what I watch more than anything this year. Can this be a cleaner football team, certainly against the best teams they play?
When you look at the defense from last year, I know so much of the focus has been on the offense and the new personnel, and understandably. But I feel like what's been lost a little bit are some of the guys that played impactful roles last year defensively. Then they were just rock solid kind of across the board. They might not always, win the underwear Olympics with their height, weight, size, speed combination, but they were good football players, and a bunch of those guys are now gone. How do they feel collectively about what they have on the defensive side?
Yeah, Greg, they're going to lean hard on this class and last year's class defensively. I think they lost 4 of their top 5 tacklers, something like that. Now they're bringing guys back like Falk, who's a stud. But you're going to see their last 2 classes have been ranked for what that's worth in the top 10 nationally. I think we're going to find out how good they are this season, because a lot of those guys defensively, even some of the freshmen, guys like Bryce Deeds, they're going to lean on those guys, and they're going to have them play. And I'm not saying they got to be their guy on defense, but certainly guys will be contributors and be part of what they want to do defensively. They went to portal. They got the corner. They got the linebacker. They got a safety. So you're right. This is going to be a defense that personnel-wise doesn't look exactly like they did last year, because they did lose some key guys. But I think they feel like their talent and their ability in their last 2 classes and some of the transfers they brought in will help them maintain what they did last year. I think they were 26th or 7th nationally in scoring defense. And in talking to guys like Keldrick Falk, he said, our numbers were pretty good. He said, we got to play better and be elite in elite situations, I think is the way he said it to me. We weren't elite in as many elite situations as we needed to be last year.
Chris Lowe joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline of ESPN. Had a chance to visit with Hugh Freeze, some Auburn players in the last week. Article up now at ESPN.com. You mentioned Jeremiah Wright. You talked to him, spoke to him. I think he can be a big part of why that offensive line is a lot better than some people would imagine. What's the expectation about that group? Maybe not just from him, but from everybody in the building.
They'll be better, deeper. I mean, they brought in a couple guys in the portal, and then most everybody, Cole, that they wanted to keep came back. Guys that played didn't always play great last year, but I think they feel like the continuity will be better. Able to run the ball and do things again in those areas. Again, you've been a former offensive lineman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Coming off the goal line in the red zone, I think he scored 8 touchdowns in 8 SEC games last year in the red zone. I mean, you got to be better than that. And I think that's where they feel like they will be better. And talking to Jeremiah, and to me, he sort of epitomizes what that program has been through the last 5 or 6 years. The kid's been hurt. He was there in COVID. He's had 4 different coaches, counting Cadillac. He's sort of seen it, and yet he's also knows, being a kid from that state, what Auburn football is and what the expectations are. But he feels like they'll be better, and that there's more of I don't want to say more of a sense of urgency, but with new quarterback, some new guys plugging in an offensive line, certainly some new playmakers at the receiver position, that there'll be more. I think the word he used, I think we will be an offense that's better able to dictate what we're going to do because we're going to be a little bit more balanced.
I don't think there's any doubt. So, Chris, we appreciate the time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Great article. It's up now. We'll share it, and hopefully our readers can check it out. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, guys. Take care.
You go. Chris Lowe of ESPN, spending some time down in Auburn with Hugh Freeze, some of those players on the Plains. The expectation, what is it really? What do we think it could be? We talked about the wide receiver position a little bit earlier in the show. We'll get back to that on the other side. Talk about maybe what that's going to be, what it's going to look like, where the team's going to be. First, I want to tell you about Gusty Goulas Group and his team. 855-star Google reviews. 205-542-1996. You want to get in touch with Gusty Goulas and the Gusty Goulas Group. Go to gustygoulasgroup.com today. Button at the top right of your page. Smash that. Very little information. And right there, you're going to be able to find out what your home is worth. They've served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area, including family members of mine. They want to help you. Brokered by eXp Realty, they can do that. Get you into your dream house. Maybe you're worried about getting your home on the market and actually selling it and getting what you need. The Gusty Goulas Group can help. Again, call 205-542-1996 or go to gustygoulasgroup.com. All right, when we come back, Auburn again, wide receivers in the SEC again. We'll get into that, have that discussion right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. 8:41, Friday, June 6th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Daryl the Moose Johnson be with us in about 40 minutes. Talk UFL playoffs coming up this weekend, some of his expectations, maybe what some of your expectations should be. Stallions at home on Sunday, 2 o'clock. Game on ABC, but you can get down and Protective, watch it yourself. Some live tackle football. Nothing better than that. Not even golf, believe it or not.
You're not into the Canadian Open?
Is that what this weekend is?
Yeah, you're all jacked
What's
up
the course?
about it. Canada.
Is that the Labatt Blue?
TPC Canada.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Is it playing long this year?
Yes.
Have they added some trees and the dog legs to make it more difficult approach shot?
Yes, I'm sure
What's
they
the
have.
stimp meter reading?
Stempy.
Okay.
Ren and Stempy.
Tell our listeners about Crocker Moving Services.
Crocker Moves are a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. They need your whole home packed up and move. Your company headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room. These guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
What were your thoughts on Chris Lowe's confidence maybe that has grown with Auburn and what they can be this year?
I've kind of been confident. You know what I mean? I was a little bit last year too, so I feel like I'm kind of playing and living by the sword a bit. So I have confidence in them. I still think they're going to be quite good. But last year they kind of burned me with just situational awareness. So that kind of hurts a bit. But as far as their personnel, like if you really look at their personnel, assuming a big assumption here, assuming their personnel is as good as we think it has a chance to be, how can they not be considerably better? I mean, it'd be almost impossible not to consider them a significantly improved group.
Significantly better is where I think I begin to pay more attention. Can they be better? Yeah, obviously. You and I both know what goes into being significantly better, though. That's where details, leadership, small things, and staying healthy, some that are out of your control, become a big part of that.
Of course.
If you're going to take massive steps, that can't always just be our guys putting forth the right effort, or do you have a good game plan? And then, of course, schedule, matchups are all a part of that as well. The interesting portion of this, and I actually talked to Chris about the article. He called me after he was down there, wanted to talk about a few things, is what he was referencing, and he references a little bit in the story of Hugh Freeze saying that he thought his quarterback took too much of the blame last year.
Yeah.
And there were certain things that happened that should not have been on him and were. And, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. My initial thought was, yeah, it's a little late for that now.
Right.
I mean, Greg and I tried to tell you guys some of that. We tried to explain some of that. There were some things done post-game in interviews that shouldn't have been done the way that they were. But I guess it's good to realize and see that realization is there. And I'll quote the story. One of the most improved groups on the team should be the receiving core. Freeze said Thorne unfairly took the brunt of the deal last season over the Tigers' struggles on offense. There were times last year when Peyton was ready to pull the trigger on something that should have been there, and we may have been a little young at receiver and didn't quite run the right depth of a route or the right route. The difference I see right now in Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman is monumental. We're starting to understand the game and the system. I think Jackson's going to be the beneficiary of that.
And that's great transparency and great honesty, I think. Because when I watched it last year, so much of the blame always gets put on the quarterback, but there's so much more going on than people realize. We talked about it earlier with Cam Coleman's advancement, the importance of them making sure that their route depths are appropriate. Just taking if it requires a 5-step slant, you run a 5-step slant, not a 3-step slant. If you're throwing a 10-yard out route and you're anticipating that 10-yard out route, the out route's at 8, guess what? You're late if the receiver runs it at 8 and you're expecting him to be at 10. There's a lot of nuance that goes into playing that position. That's why you can't play quarterback by yourself. It doesn't matter how good you are. And the best quarterbacks will demand excellence across the board. The guy's not where he needs to be, you don't throw it. And there were times last year where Peyton tried to throw it. The guy wasn't where he was supposed to be. Peyton tried it, and it resulted in disaster. So that happens too. The quarterback's got to accept some of that responsibility and knowing, yep, you know what? We just can't pull the trigger there. I can't do it. But all things considered, like I think the offense has a chance to be quite a bit better. I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that's the case, but we'll see.
I just vividly remember sitting in this studio and being in my hotel room in Charlotte many a Monday in the fall.
Many a Monday.
And one Greg McElroy pleading, begging people to understand this is what was not done on multiple plays yesterday or 2 days ago or 3 days ago.
Yes.
Trying to ask people to understand you can't throw to a route that's not there when it's supposed to be there.
Yes.
And then some of the protection issues that
and
we
not
tried
even
to
just
explain.
throwing. How about you can't run this play if there's a man on, man outside of an open-ended tackle. So your right tackle has a defensive end outside of him and an outside linebacker outside of him, and the play calls for a zone read. You cannot run that play. Why can't you run that play? Because the end man on the line of scrimmage can take the running back, the outside guy can take the quarterback. You can't run it. 4th and 1 at Georgia. Go back and look at it. Zone read gets run. Who called it? Who checked to it? Who knows? It's not important at this point. It's water under the bridge. But you can't run that play.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. So I think there's a lot of everyone wants to play the blame game, and it just doesn't matter at this point. But there's a lot of people that had a hand in the offense's inefficiencies on pivotal down and distance last year. And hopefully whether it's their communication, whether it's the freedom the quarterback has to get out of a certain play, whether it's the passing game and its advancement across the board, everyone has a hand in it. And hopefully all those things are ironed out going into the season, because they clearly weren't last year. And it came up, unfortunately, far too often. And they lost games as a result. So I think playing smart football, understanding situations, understanding numbers, understanding leverage, understanding all those things are important as far as the advancement in this group. And I think it can be done, but it's going to require a lot more attention to detail kind of across the board.
Your CBD store has an understanding of how to make your life better. They have products that can help get you a better night's sleep. They have products that can get you your aches and pains disappearing, whether that's you or your pet. Arthritis, anxiety, they can help with that. Skincare, gut health, your CBD store wants to help you today. Go by one of their 3 locations. Listen, great customer service. They're going to know exactly how to get you in front of what you need, when you need it, and products that are just going to make your daily routine a little bit better. Whether it's relaxing in the evenings, waking up feeling more refreshed in the mornings, your CBD store can help. Weight loss, the Trim by SunMed on the shelves now at one of those 3 locations. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustful just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points. Your CBD store where good health hits home. We'll continue this conversation on the other side with what Auburn could be and talk SEC wide receiver rooms next. Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Going to have to wait on some more of the SEC wide receiver and future of the Auburn program conversation. One thing you never have to wait for, though, Greg, is your dental care.
That's because Famicare Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care office where you can be seen the same day in several locations to make it easy on you. Hoover, Fultondale, Homewood, Alabaster, and Trustful. They can get you in the same day. They can also see you on Fridays and Saturdays, which certainly makes it a lot easier and flexible from a scheduling standpoint. So go see Famicare Dental today and give them a call at 874-9605. That's 874-9605.
All right, this Auburn football team, we know wide receiver is going to have to be a big part of why they're going to be better. We were mentioning top wide receiver rooms in the SEC. I had LSU a little further down than you did. I actually had Auburn 1. I had Alabama 2.
Where do you have LSU?
I have them 4th.
What's the holdup?
The consistencies and inconsistencies of different guys for different reasons. Like I said, Barryon Brown has trouble catching the football.
Correct, but give him the ball.
He gets the ball and holds on to it. He can be dynamic. He can be great. Yes. I love Aaron Anderson. I'm with you. He's one of the guys, I think, when I went through this practice, I told you I found multiple players that are just flat underrated and need a lot more conversation. Not even so much about them as receivers, but football players. Caden Lee would be one. I don't think people outside Oxford really know a lot about Caden Lee. And I think he's a great wide receiver, a great football player.
I think you can make the case that Aaron Anderson's the most underrated player in the SEC. Like, I think he's that good.
Let me give you a couple of others and just kind of see where you go with them.
Okay.
Dylan Bell.
I think Dylan Bell has a lot of the same challenges that Barryon Brown has. You get him the ball, he's a huge problem. But there are some inconsistencies as far as being a super well-rounded wide receiver that would cause me to just have a slight pause.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's going to develop into that, by the way. I think Dylan Bell and Jeremy Bernard are very, very similar. They're great football players, but as far as the polish, they just needed this last year to kind of develop into their own. So I'm very bullish on Dylan Bell this year.
That's kind of where I was going, just the football player part of them. Xavion Thomas, another one.
Same thing.
Football player, just great.
Great football player.
And probably doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the other things that they do. Chris Hilton, we mentioned timing the jumps. Nick Anderson being healthy. Is he going to be on the field? We haven't seen him in over a year. So we just don't really know. I think that's the thing that kind of got me is Aaron Anderson enough all over the field to take over games? And if the inconsistencies with the other parts of the group don't vastly improve, I don't know if they can be better than some of these others that we're talking about.
I think that's fair.
Like Mario Craver going to A&M. I just think football player-wise doesn't get enough credit for what he is. And I know we've only seen 1 year of him in college football, but I think he's great. So I'll try to sell Greg on another team in front of LSU next. Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Friday, June 6th, 9 a.m. Hour number 3 underway. Continuing our conversation on Auburn. Well, they will be this year. Talking to Chris Lowe a little bit earlier. We talked some UFL with Deion Kane. We'll do that again with Moose Johnson in 20 minutes. Stallions in a USFL divisional playoff game at home Sunday, 2 o'clock, ABC, but they'll be live, Tackle Football Protective, if you want to get down and go check that out. Greg, before we get back into this, we've talked about the ceiling for Auburn this coming season. Haven't really mentioned the floor, but if you need new flooring, who should you call?
That'd be Shannara Flooring. And Fu and his company has been built on a foundation of trust and integrity. They just do an amazing job. And I know that you guys will feel great when you bring them out to your home and have them install some new floors. And right now is a great time to do it because my friends at Shannara Flooring, with the 40,000 square feet of CoreTech flooring that they have in stock, you can get $5 off per box when you order it from Shannara Flooring. This CoreTech is 100% waterproof, pet-proof, and super durable. Right now, maybe you have some carpet that you're thinking about upgrading. Well, the sky's the limit on what you can potentially save. You can get 15% off flooring now through July 2nd. Savings start at $150 and only go up from there. You can also get 12 months financing with approved credit. So you can see it all online at fuandyou.com.
So when we're talking about these wide receiver groups in the Southeastern Conference, we know I had Auburn 1, Alabama 2. I think getting away from the holdups with LSU, do you think Aaron Anderson is on the level better than Eric Singleton?
Yes.
You think he's on the level better than Ryan Williams?
No.
You think Ryan Williams is that much further ahead than Singleton?
I think Ryan Williams is better than Singleton, yeah.
Better, yes.
Banking on upside, banking on the fact that Singleton's been in the game for 3 years now as a high-level performer in college, I'm banking on tremendous growth from Ryan Williams this year.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a projection for sure. I think if you go with what they were last year, I think it's very comparable. But if you want to go on what they could be this year, I think it's likely that we see a big jump from Ryan Williams.
Okay. Because Singleton and Williams were two of the main reasons that I had Auburn, Alabama a little bit higher. Auburn, then the depth, I gave them a little more credibility. I'm with you on Bernard. I think he's a great football player. I think he can get a little better as a receiver. Jalen Hale may end up being the take the top off guy. Heard a lot of good things about him. Don't really know. We've seen Isaiah Horton at Miami. So you get another sort of bigger body wideout that can help you in different ways. I had Alabama 2. I had Georgia at 3. And now there are some ifs with this because there are some new faces, and then there are some guys that have been there but maybe didn't get it done there. It's a little bit more of a coin flip with Georgia, I think, potentially than LSU, but there's a little bit more of a deeper gamble, I feel like, with Georgia. So
what's the difference between like a Xavion Thomas and a Zachariah Branch? Outside of the fact that Zachariah Branch...
Xavion Thomas plays?
Well, outside of the fact that Zachariah Branch came in with 5 stars and like all the...
Well, no, the difference is Xavion Thomas is more polished, I think can do more things as a football player better on the field. Zachariah Branch can outrun him. That's the difference. And Zachariah Branch isn't on the field as much. So that was a major gamble. Zachariah Branch was not a big reason I had Georgia here. I think he is very much a nicer to have rather than a need to have. Now, do you need some guys that can help stretch the field? We've seen Georgia have that guy specifically take that role multiple times, whether it's been Mecole Hardman, Arian Smith, whoever it is, and not be a great pass catcher, but the offense can benefit from what they're capable of doing because it's going to scare the defense. And then you get them the ball in a cute way here and there every now and then, and they use their speed, and maybe it helps you out.
Maybe, yeah.
But I think you and I will both agree when Colby Young's on the field, he's pretty good.
Very.
And can be an outside guy that can threaten you in different ways. 47 for 563 in 2023 at Miami. But he's got to be healthy. He's got to be on the field. Noah Thomas is one of those different. He's like a Johnny Wilson at Florida State. He's like an Anthony Mix at Auburn, like just almost tight end, not quite big enough, not fast enough to just be a wide receiver, but his physical versatility gives you the ability to do some different things.
Yes.
Past what most normal wide receivers can do. So we would agree on all those guys. Dylan Bell, can he improve his intricacies as a wide receiver? Yes, but he does a lot of good things for your football team when he's on the field.
Correct. He's good. He's good in blocking. He can give you actually a couple carries out of the backfield. Like he's good, great, just a great pound for pound football player.
All right, here's the one that put me over the hump. Literally. And you and I have talked about him. You and I have asked the question why. We have asked the question where. We have asked the question when. I am going to push my chips to the middle of the table and say that I think this will be the year that somebody figures out how to use London Humphreys.
Yeah,
I think he can play. I just think he can play. And
I think he was so underutilized last year, and by the time they figured it out, it was almost too late.
And let's be honest, he disappeared at times 2 years ago at Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
but then he was their go-to wide receiver. But then there were other weeks in which he was just gone. You didn't know where he was.
Right.
I think he can be somebody that they can really lean on, and that can be consistent, beneficial for that offense this upcoming season. Now,
I could see all of that.
Like I said, those are some ifs. But
it's an if, but
also,
I think it's a fair bet.
Yeah. Is Nick Anderson going to be healthy? Is Barryon Brown going to catch the ball? Is Chris Hilton going to be more consistent finding and locating the football? Those are big ifs also. So
let's re-rack those. So you have right now, you have Auburn 1.
Yep.
At 2, you have Bama.
Alabama, correct.
At 3, you have who?
Georgia.
Okay, so Georgia ahead of LSU.
Correct.
All right, which is fine. Allow me for a moment to thrust another name in the conversation. Ole Miss. And here's part of the reason why. I'm not going to sit there and tell you they're going to be as good as last year. I'm not. But last year, I thought they were head and shoulders above everybody else.
Okay? Oh, there's no doubt, especially going into the season.
Correct. Going into the year. But Trey Wallace transfer from Penn State. You can tell me, oh, well, he hadn't played at Ole Miss. Tell me a receiver that's gotten worse by going to Ole Miss's offense. Name one ever. Exactly. All right.
Juice Wells.
Well,
I don't think it was the offense's fault. I will agree. But
it's a great answer, but I will not accept it. All right. DeJon Stribling has played a lot of football. He's a fifth-year senior. He's been around. He was back with Cam Ward at Washington State, was a dude. Was their go-to guy, called some of his games. He's a player. Now, he's got to stay healthy. That's important. But he can play. Trey Wallace transferring down from Penn State. I think he was remarkably underutilized last year. They made such a great effort to get the tight ends involved last year. The receivers were kind of left on the back burner. And I think Trey Wallace has a lot of talent and will actually be quite good. I think Caden Lee, you can make a case. He's among the best slot receivers in the entire league. And then I think the addition of Caleb Odom is nice. They had high hopes for him at Alabama last year. It never really materialized. I think that was more with, a reluctance by the quarterback to kind of look outside of one particular receiver at times. And then I think the addition of the freshman Caleb Cunningham has just an interesting mix when you take into account as well the two tight ends that can potentially take over the game.
Yeah.
So I think that you have a really nice contingent of pass catchers there at Ole Miss this year, not necessarily in name or recruit level or any of that stuff, but those guys can play. Big fan.
I'm with you. And I think that here's the deal with these receiver groups. There's going to be a ton of ifs a lot of places. And one thing that you did mention was sort of the new faces there. And it did give me some pause.
Sure.
New faces also with a new quarterback. But you do have Caden Lee back who's been there. A couple tight ends that have been there. You are bringing in a new tight end who I think can help a lot. But we'll see. A&M, same thing. Like Concepcion, we both love.
Love him.
Mario Craver, big fan up from Mississippi State. Slot receiver that can catch and run, can do all of it. Terry Bussey did some good things last year, but that's a lot of unknowns, ifs, maybes. So we're not going to talk about any of these groups and not look at it and say there's not a new face they're relying on or somebody who hasn't been in the offense that they're going to lean on just a little bit.
No
Ole Miss
question.
was in my discussion. I actually went Texas at 5. I think DeAndre Moore is another guy that people were sleeping on. When he was healthy, he was really good.
I think Texas is getting a little too much credit. And don't get me wrong, like I'll bank on the upside of Texas, but if you look at the personnel that was lost off last year's team, like everyone else gets absolutely hammered for what they lose. Texas, for whatever reason, doesn't. I think DeAndre Moore is really good. I think Ryan Wingo's good. But you lose your best tight end, and you lose arguably your 2 best receivers.
I'm not going to argue about what's
maybe
gone.
Top 3 receivers.
You can't take when you lose your best tight end. Also,
You're going to be relying on 4 freshmen in the rotation. Now, I'm not saying they don't have the talent. All those guys are highly regarded prospects, but I think Texas has questions at receivers, relatively speaking. A lot of their roster does not have questions. They have a lot of really good personnel, but I don't think it's an automatic, hey, put them in the mix, because I think there are some unknowns there.
There are, but I think Ryan Wingo is going to be a star. I think he's big time. I think DeAndre Moore, vastly underrated. I like him at Mosley. I liked what I watched at Stanford. Almost in that sort of, I don't want to go full like Johnny Wilson, Chase Claypool role, but a bigger, longer guy, longer strider, can do some different things. But he's still pretty good in some of the intermediate stuff as well. I think he's going to be really nice in that offense. And I wonder, you give me your thoughts on this, because this is one of the reasons that I allowed myself to put them ahead of some of the other teams. Take what you said about last year's team. Could there be sort of a positive offset to all those guys being gone to where, correct. Now you're able to lock in on finding matchups for Wingo, finding matchups for Moore, finding matchups for Mosley. You're still going to have your backs out of the backfield that you're going to utilize. And yes, a freshman or two may have to give you some reps, but could it almost allow for some more consistency with the same names in more frequently? And maybe that's how it helps out a little bit there. That's one of the things that I sort of convinced myself to allow Texas to be there at 5.
I think that's okay if you really want to factor in the possible contributions that you get from the running backs. I think there is value to be had there amongst the running backs as pass catchers, because they're going to use the running backs in the passing game. So if you use those two, I think you have a great argument. But I'm not factoring in those two into my weaponry. So if you are, totally support that. But if we're going exclusively based on wide receiver room, and I will now, because of where we've now evolved into, I will now include tight ends in the weaponry, because a lot of those guys they're wide receivers that are slightly overgrown and play slot. A lot of those guys, let's be real, they're receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, very few am I sitting there thinking, man, I can't wait for him to block the point. All right. So taking that into account, I'm not there with Texas. Like, I would have Ole Miss ahead of Texas.
Okay.
As far as proven college level production. Upside, sure. I'll lean on Texas. I have no problems with that. No doubt about it. I have no problem trusting Texas on the upside. But that's not, at this point, there's too much that the Ole Miss group has done collectively in college to not have them ahead of Texas at the moment.
Right. And it was a little bit odd how different things moved the meter for me on this. Like, Ryan Wingo was massive for me. Ryan Williams, massive for me. Eric Singleton, massive for me. Like, they bumped those groups up a lot. And honestly, Aaron Anderson kept LSU where they were because I'm so concerned about some of the inconsistencies with the other guys there.
Yeah.
And that just, for whatever reason, couldn't get over a few of those things like I could with what you mentioned about Zachariah Branch.
Right.
Because I agree with everything you say there. I just don't think that they're going to lean on him for 10 targets a game. I don't think he's that guy.
I don't know. Arian Smith got a lot of targets.
And I had a lot of misses on those targets as well.
I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying he got a lot of targets.
Yeah, it's totally fair. But it was odd how certain individuals, like, I just am to the point with Ryan Williams that he is going to push Alabama ahead of a lot of other groups just because of him. Because I think
let's
he's
just take into account what circumstances he was playing under last year. Okay, like, and this is not anything that he could have controlled. His quarterback was erratic and inconsistent, and he also arrived in June. And I know it gets overplayed, but I do think graduating high school a year early leads to even less polish than one would imagine. So I think, look, I always anticipate a big jump from freshman year to sophomore year. I think that's one of the biggest leaps you make as a player. I think his leap could be even more significant this year because of the circumstances that he had to play under last year. So yes, if you are banking your excitement about Bama's receiver core on purely his development, you will have no pushback from me whatsoever.
Yeah. So those were mine. Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas. The others that I gave it consideration to were A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Florida. I do think the Florida group's a little young. Oklahoma, I think you know why I'm even mentioning them there, and that would be Deion Burks, because if he's healthy, I think he's that special. I don't know if the rest of the group can be on par with some of these other teams and what we've mentioned.
Right.
But I do think that with Stribling, Walnut, and obviously Caden Lee back at Ole Miss, they have a chance to be pretty good.
Yep.
I hadn't seen them together in that offense. Obviously, new quarterback makes you a little more concerned there. And then A&M bringing in Concepcion and Craver to go with Bussey, I think has a chance to be a pretty good group. All in all, kind of similar to what I thought about the SEC defensive lines. Going through this practice, the groups are going to be better than I thought they were. I mean, you knew you had the individual standouts, but I think the reason that they're going to be better than I thought they were because of guys like Aaron Anderson, Dylan Bell, Xavion Thomas, even an Eric Singleton, even a Deion Burks, guys who I don't think that a lot of the college football world's talking about. London Humphrey's another one.
Sure.
Some really underrated guys that could end up being stars for their teams this year.
I think the league is going to be really flush with wide receivers at season's end. It might not necessarily be the same household names that one would assume, maybe not the crazy star power of a Jeremiah Smith reincarnated. Like, let's not get carried away. But I think collectively the group will be very, very good, which is a great spot to be.
Absolutely. All right, when we come back, UFL in a great spot this weekend with the playoffs going. Daryl the Moose Johnson will join us to discuss it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Had some great conversations today. A lot to discuss, a lot to get to. Still more coming as we are going to get into the UFL playoffs, which begin this weekend. Before we get into those with Daryl the Moose Johnson, you guys know I often tell you about my friends at Royal Automotive for good reason. I drive a truck from Royal each and every day and absolutely love it. For over 50 years, my friends at Royal Automotive have been helping our friends and neighbors experience our car buying should be. Right now, you can get financing as low as 0% with approved credit on select models through June the 30th. Certain restrictions apply. 4 dealerships, 1 destination, unmatched selection and savings. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Auto Mart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. From sales to service, the teams at Royal can help you find that new ride and keep you rolling. When it's time to start searching for your next vehicle, all 4 stores, 1 location can get you behind the wheel for a test drive without driving all over town. That's why they say for every ride there's Royal, and they mean it. Go right there to the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia, online at royalautomotive.net. Daryl the Moose Johnson with us now to discuss UFL playoffs coming up this weekend. And Moose, I feel like the teams that have been able to offset adversity best are going to be able to find a way to win this championship this year. You think about Michigan in the quarterback situation, seemingly finding Bryce Perkins coming into his own. They have some issues at injury with running back Chawatoa. All of a sudden looks like one of the better backs in the league. Birmingham, all their quarterback issues. Just feels like all these teams have been hit with something, and whoever overcomes it, manages it best in these next 2 games will probably end up being your champion.
Yeah, I think it comes down to confidence, and I think that's one of the things you've seen from all 4 of the playoff teams this season. And when you look at the other 4 that didn't make the playoffs, they had adversity, they had challenges as well, but they didn't have that confidence established yet to be able to overcome that. So, just watching Birmingham through the course of the season, everything that they've dealt with, Michigan, everything that you've dealt with, all the things that you just mentioned, but both of them having the confidence, having good leadership, and not just from Skip Holtz and Mike Nolan, but also within that team. And it's one of the things that everybody has always said about Birmingham, that the culture that was established back in 2022 in year 1 of the USFL, it's still there today. There's a lot of those core guys that carry that on, and they never bat an eye. And I think the greatest example is the Houston game, earlier this year in Birmingham. And I'm watching that game on television, and at no point did I feel like Houston had control of the game. I always felt like Birmingham was going to find a way to steal that at the end. So that's just, it's such a great skill to have. They probably have it more than any of the 4. And they've been able to use that over the course of the last 3 seasons to win 3 championships.
What can you say about just the adversity that these teams have had to go through from a quarterback situation, man? It's wild. I mean, I've never seen anything like it with the turnover and the chaos that's been had at the quarterback spot kind of throughout. It's wild. It's like a bad dream in some ways. So what does that say kind of about the depth of the league and the depth of the position?
Well, I got to get a lot of credit to Corey Chamblin and with Birmingham and that defense. That group has really kind of been the constant for this team and has always given the offense a chance to win. Kickoff return has put them in good field position. So when your offense doesn't have that consistency at the quarterback position, you need other areas to step up. And again, Birmingham has been able to do that. And I think a lot of it has to do with that culture that's been established there. I think Michigan is the odd one, because a lot of the quarterback stuff was a little bit self-inflicted until, that St. Louis game, when you're still kind of doing the platoon system and Bryce Perkins is having such a great game, and you go to Danny Etling and you have a couple of big mistakes there that let that game slip away from you on the road. So, I think that is something that Marcel Belfait, came to realize, Mike Nolan came to realize. Bryce Perkins, watching him, he did things this year. He got out of jams and made plays that, I would go back and watch it again and go, okay, I saw that live or I saw that on TV, but I got to go back and watch that again because I just don't know how he continues to get out of these situations. So, the hard part there was down the stretch. He's not able to play. And I think that's the unknown going into the game this weekend. How long does it take him to kind of shake that rust off? Does he hit the ground running? Did he get enough snaps during the week to feel comfortable coming off that ankle? So I think that'll be the big test for me. My eyes will be on Bryce Perkins at the start of the game to see how comfortable he looks.
I don't think there's any doubt. Daryl the Moose Johnson joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline discussing UFL playoffs are coming up this weekend. We're going to host one here, Moose. What do you want to need to see from Birmingham in general, not just on the field, the football team this weekend?
Well, I'll start at the top and being greedy. Love to see a nice crowd in Birmingham to support a team that's going for something that's only been done by one other team, and that's the Houston Comets of the WNBA, and that's winning the first 4 championships in a new league. And Birmingham would be able to put their name on that along with one other team. That's a huge accomplishment. And just what this team has done, over the last 3 seasons and now into the 4th one, has been really impressive. In Birmingham, the fan base should be very, very proud of what their team has done. So it'd be great to have that full house. Everybody talks about the challenges in playing in St. Louis and in the false start penalties that crowd generates, and having to work on your silent count and all the things that happen when you've got that home field advantage. And we'd love to see that be the case in Birmingham this week. Other than that, I think, you want to see Birmingham be able to establish the run a little bit at the beginning of the game. You want to see the defense be able to kind of defend the run against Michigan. Michigan's going to come out and they're going to try to establish the run. They're going to try to control the line of scrimmage. So I think that's going to be fun to watch. It's deservedly the 2 best teams in the USFL conference. They've played great games this season. They've played great games the last 2 seasons. It's been frustrating for Mike Nolan and his group. They haven't been able to get over that hurdle. I know what that's like. Philadelphia was the last team that we beat when I was with the Cowboys. Even when we had our championship teams, Philadelphia was an outstanding defense. And that was always our hardest challenge. And it becomes frustrating. It gets into your head a little bit. So I know that's something that Coach Nolan's going to have to do with his guys is make sure they're in the right spot. And he's building them up during the course of the week. They find all the positives from the game a couple of weeks ago. You add into that Bryce is going to be out there on the field with you. So there's probably the line of scrimmage is where my eyes will be, because I think that's just such a huge part of football today, not just what we're doing in the UFL. I think we're kind of following what we saw from the NFL last season. Philadelphia, they manhandled Kansas City along the line of scrimmage in that Super Bowl. And that's why that game got away from Kansas City so quickly. I've been really excited because there's a big emphasis back onto what's going on inside, as opposed to the dynamic ability of these amazing athletes on the outside. None of that happens without the big boys up front controlling that line of scrimmage.
Do you think there's a decided advantage in one direction or the other along the line of scrimmage for these 2 teams?
I don't. I really don't. I think it's going to be a great matchup. Michigan's healthy. I think last year, if you go back and look at Michigan, the tackle position was something that they were trying to manage all season. The guys came into camp, a little bit banged up, and they fought it all season long. They came in healthy this year. They put a couple of guys on the all-UFL team. They are good, and Tim Holt is a very good offensive line coach. They play to the strengths. So I do think that Michigan is one of the better teams when you talk about the ability to run the ball and control the line of scrimmage. We talked a lot about Mark Colombo and Tom Cable coming into the year this year, and I think sometimes it's a little bit of an oversight because we do have good offensive line coaches, across the league. Googe for Birmingham is another one of our really good coaches. So, on the defensive side, I think that Birmingham poses one of the biggest problems. I think they're very, very good up front. Whether it's coming off the edge or inside, I just think that defensively they've been very, very underrated this year. Because I think a lot of that story has been focused onto the struggles they've had at the quarterback position, the fairy tale story that we have emerging with Jamar Smith and what he's on the cusp of accomplishing. And all of our eyes have been over there. And yet here's this defense that has just been steady all season long. And a lot of that has to do with that front that kind of sets the tone.
Daryl the Moose Johnson joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. I want to go back to something you just mentioned there a moment ago in the playoffs, facing off against those Philadelphia teams. We often talk about how hard it is to game plan around a guy, and everybody always just thinks, well, you double team this guy, or you roll a safety over, or you get a chip from a tight end. What did you guys have to do different for Reggie White?
We were blessed. We had Eric Williams And Eric Williams, we could leave Eric Williams out there on Reggie White. One of the unique things that Reggie would do is Reggie had the ability to go across the offensive line and kind of, pick the guy that he felt gave him the best opportunity. And that was really hard for him to do against us because our five were pretty stout. We were a team that matched up well. Now, where Philadelphia gave you problems it wasn't just Reggie White. I mean, you had Clyde Simmons on the other side. Andy Harmon inside was always an underrated guy. Jerome Brown, before he left us far too early, was at that time the most dominant inside player. They were just unbelievable. But we were blessed. Eric Williams gave us the ability to kind of leave that out there and let him go one-on-one with Reggie. We'd check, Emmett and I would check when we went out that way, and we'd make sure everything was shored up. But very rarely did we feel we had to jump in there and help him out. I've told this to so many people. If you're a football fan and you want to see something really, really entertaining to watch, just go out and Google Reggie White versus Eric Williams and just watch the battle that these guys had. And so for us, it was really that whole defense. It wasn't just Reggie. Reggie obviously was the key figure there, but they were so strong across that front. They were very, very good at the linebacker level. William Thomas, who's actually one of the officials, in our league, was a very, very underrated, outside linebacker because you had Seth Joyner on the other side. And then their secondary was outstanding. Michael Irvin was always very, very complimentary of Philadelphia's secondary. I mean, they were number one. They were the number one defense in the league, number one against the pass, number one against the run, and number one in points, I think 3 years in a row. I mean, that's how good, that's how talented that team was. And it's amazing they never won a Super Bowl through those years.
Was it just a car accident that keeps Eric from getting the credit that he deserves? I mean, like Larry Allen gets a ton of credit. Nate Newton gets a ton of credit. Stepnoski, I feel like even kind of gets his due to a certain extent, but like nobody ever talks about Eric Williams, and I feel like he was up there with any of those guys that you guys had.
Yeah,
even Tuinei for a while
Williams
got his run. I mean, people talked about him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he pitched a shutout to Bruce Smith in 2 Super Bowls, and we left Tui out there on the edge by himself. That was the way that Norv Turner did it. Hey, these guys are very, very talented, but we have faith in you, and you got to stand up. We're going to help you. We'll get you some chips and different things, but they're the majority of the game. You're going to have to stand up there and perform on your own. So Tui was able to pitch a shutout to Bruce Smith in 2 Super Bowls. But I agree with you. I think that if Eric isn't in that car accident, he's a Hall of Famer. And to me, he should be more in the mix when we have those conversations, because there was not a meaner, more physical guy on the football field than Eric Williams. And when we lost Eric, we lost a ton of our swagger, that physicality that the offensive line had, that just that mean style of play that our offense was able to play. I mean, one of the things that drove me crazy was that defensive mentality. Defense are the guys that are physical and tough and mean and play angry. I mean, our offensive line was unbelievable, and it was all because of Eric Williams. And if he doesn't have that car accident, I think he's in the Hall of Fame.
Is this AG they missed on the wheel route going in early up the right hash? Why were you not in for that play?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And it wasn't Tommy Agee. It was another guy that came in.
34. I don't know who he is.
You're too tired?
No, I don't know why. I've had many a conversation with Norv Turner. I was hot coming off the field. Because not at one time did I ever have an issue with 370 F shoot pump. That was the play that was called. And I was livid when they made that switch.
Can't even imagine.
He was a little bit faster than me. But he didn't run as good a route. So I might have been a step or two slower, but I was going to be more open on that throw.
There you go. Well, Moose, we're looking forward to the playoffs this weekend, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be 2 good games, and then obviously we'll get that championship game in St. Louis. Thanks for hopping on with us. We'll do it again next week if that's all right with you and preview that title game. But have a good weekend.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We'll see you at Protective.
Absolutely. There you go. Daryl the Moose Johnson talking UFL playoffs coming up this weekend. Live tackle football right here in Birmingham, 2 o'clock on Sunday. The Michigan Panthers, Birmingham Stallions, again, feels like this has happened a lot late in the season the last 2 years. Looking like another good game coming up this weekend as the Stallions look to advance to the championship game and bring Birmingham another title. We'll talk that, a little bit more SEC, all up next right here. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Y'all can pretty much count me out for the rest of the show as I've got Eric Williams versus Reggie White on.
I love that you're all in.
Well, then I see Larry Allen just literally walking a defensive tackle out of the hole. I think it's Santana Dotson, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a name drop. Wow.
And pulled that out of nowhere.
Look at you. 90s NFL.
It's the best ever.
So fun.
It's literally the best ever. The best.
God, that just takes me back to my card collection.
I mean, it's like you and I were talking in the break, just that, because you asked, I wonder if Moose gets tired of talking about that. Like if he even really wants to talk about it. And
right.
I think it's a team that had one of the most dominant runs in NFL history. Like a lot of folks talk Patriots. A lot of folks talk about Chiefs right now. The Steelers run still, I think it gets its run. It gets fair discussion.
It's just so long ago.
But the Steelers run was longer than that. I mean, it's the 70s.
That's what I'm talking about.
But
I'm talking about the Steelers.
I don't think these Dallas teams still today. I don't know if I'm not going to say they don't get the respect, but they just don't get the discussion they deserve as how freaking good they were, how dominant they were. Like we were talking about Stepnoski, Larry Allen, Eric Williams. I mean, think about like who talks about Jay Novacek? Jay Novacek was great.
Great player.
Moose was great. We just don't talk about fullbacks very often. Aikman, unbelievable. He gets his run because he's still on TV every Monday night. But, there's a lot of folks that on those teams that they don't get the credit they deserve, I don't feel. Charles Haley on defense. There's a lot of people talking about him. Like Darren Woodson was really good. Nobody mentions his name.
No.
It's just there were a ton of dudes that were just unbelievable on those Cowboy teams.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to think about when you take it into account because it's one of those stretches of dominance, and I think it's a little bit hard to fully appreciate how hard it is to win back then. Like now with offenses and quarterback play, so much of it revolves around the quarterback, and Aikman was phenomenal. He was a great player, obviously Hall of Famer, right? But back then it really was a lot of line of scrimmage. Everyone was kind of running the same offense. You had 21 personnel, two tight ends and two running backs, a running back, fullback, tight end, two wide receivers, like traditional under center pro style offense. It was really not as much of a matchup game back then as it was just a blunt force trauma game. So to dominate in that era is insane. That's why the Bills obviously changed the game. They obviously threw it all over the yard. But for the most part, man, a lot of the offenses look the same. So it's pretty awesome to think how good that group was collectively.
I'd say they may not have gotten there, but I've seen Gilbert Brown in the backfield like 3 times now.
Yeah.
Gilbert Brown was,
he's a big boy.
What do we think he was realistically weighing? 360?
No.
340?
Over.
They dropped him in pass coverage on a play a second ago, which is hilarious.
He had to have been over.
He was massive, and he had one of the best TFL celebrations of all time. He did the shovel in the ground, and then threw the dirt up.
I just watched. Yeah, that was a good one. I just watched the play that you were talking about where
Larry Allen just working
road
Santana
grades.
Dotson.
How good was that pad level?
Just one-on-one, mano-a-mano, who's best, and just walks him out of the hole onto his back.
How good was Larry? Larry Allen, to me, pound for pound, is the best.
He's up there, man. And it's funny because you saw him a couple plays later, kind of gets sideways and falls on his face in pass protection.
Yeah, he's a little top heavy.
Like he gave a damn about pass pro.
No.
He's trying to run.
No, he just gets
wanted him. He was a mover. He was a literal earth mover.
No, he was. He is the quintessential description of moving someone point A to point B against their will.
We talked. We they're the ones that everybody goes to, but obviously Emmett, Michael Irvin, like Alvin Harper. Nobody talks about Alvin Harper. He was a great NFL player. A great NFL player. I also kind of want to know who the guy 34 was also that came in. And it's earlier, if you were to go back and watch this and see it, they run a little wheel route. Moose gave us the play, and he's wide open in the end zone. Aikman throws it about a step too far. Perfect ball, but just a step too far.
Yeah, just a touch.
And, man, I don't know who 34 was on the 1996.
I could watch
Dallas
these
Cowboys.
highlights forever.
It's the
I don't
best.
think I'll ever get tired of watching highlights like this.
I wish if I had
it.
one wish, Greg, it would be that you and I had these games the way we have college games, and we could watch actual coaches tape of these 90s NFL games, like the Steelers defenses, these Cowboy offenses, some of those 49er offenses. Even go back maybe a tad further and watch some of those Washington offensive lines, and then a little bit later some of those Denver offensive lines when they first got the zone stuff going, like Schlereth and those guys. I would love to go back and just study that stuff, man. God, that'd be so much fun. People are just riding around thinking, what in the world are these guys talking about?
Well, I think they might have some awareness. I think a lot of our audience probably remembers what the Cowboys were in the 90s.
Almost unstoppable.
They were amazing. America's team.
Think about everything they overcame, too. Head coach owner disputes almost constantly. You had
any egos?
You had a guard trafficking marijuana. You had a running back trafficking marijuana. You had an entire house in a different neighborhood that they just went and partied at when they wanted to. You had, a car accident that puts out one of your best players. You lose him. It was just Emmett held out. I think was Charles Haley the one that came in and ended the holdout, or I think that was Irvin. They came in after they lost early and was because this is the year, 96, that it happened. They started 1-3. They started 1-3.
Think about that.
I mean, it's crazy to think about. And then Charles Haley, I think, had ownership issues back and forth. I mean, there were to say there were a few distractions is an understatement. Talking about these teams.
Yeah. It's crazy. I'm looking at this. I mean,
wait a second. This says 34 was Herschel Walker.
Not in the 90s.
96.
No. He was long gone.
I'm on the Wikipedia page. Dallas Cowboys 1996 roster 34 Herschel Walker.
He came back?
I got to text Moose and ask him if
I don't remember that.
What if it was Herschel and Moose intentionally went, it was some other guy?
I honestly don't know. There's no way.
It's what it says. I'll go back and find the play during the break and listen to the audio. You know exactly who's on the call, by the way.
Oh, Pat Summerall and
Madden.
Madden?
Not even. Did anybody else call a '90s Cowboys game?
Summerall lived in our neighborhood. Well, not in our neighborhood, but in Southlake, and I think he drove to work pretty much every Sunday. To be in our line of work and drive to work is a pretty good deal.
It doesn't happen often. No. All right, here. Hold on one second. Let's see.
That's Al Michaels.
They didn't give us his name.
Well, if it was Herschel Walker,
Was that
they would have said
Michaels?
Herschel
Was that
Walker.
Deerdorf and Michaels?
That was definitely Michaels.
Sound like Gifford.
Gifford. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Why were they? This game's on ABC. Man, back in the day when the NFC was not on Fox, there was a
long time ago.
There was a time.
Long time ago.
We'll be back right after this. Wrap up today's show next. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. I texted Moose. He hasn't responded. If this is Herschel Walker. I don't know.
If it was Herschel Walker, you think they would have said his name on the broadcast?
Well, the broadcast is cut up on this YouTube thing. So, because you could tell it kind of cuts into the color guy and gets his comment, but doesn't give you necessarily everything.
Yeah.
So, maybe, not really sure, but we'll see if that's who it was. I don't know who it was.
I don't think it was Herschel Walker, but it's absolutely possible. I would be surprised, though.
Here we
would
go.
that not be surprising?
I have 1996 Dallas Cowboys statistics up right now. Herschel Walker started one game. He had 10 carries for 83 yards, 1 touchdown.
Why didn't he get more touches? He had 8.3 yards per carry.
Got to feed him.
There's a guy who had 327 attempts for 1,204 yards and 10 touchdowns. Who averaged 4 yards a carry doing that? Name Emmett.
Moose Johnson?
Moose had 15 carries for 22 yards.
Heck yeah.
Didn't score. Come on, Norv. Get him in the end zone.
1.3 per.
Come on.
Ripping.
What are we doing?
It was all 4th and 1s.
That's it.
100%. Keep him honest. Hey, we're going to give it to the fullback before we pitch it out to him on the sweep. Just get him diving inside a little bit.
All right, speaking of games, we all know we have one game that we choose each and every week. The scenario is this. If you had one game to watch this weekend, which would it be? The Super Sofa game of the week. I kind of feel like we should let Damien start because we know where he's going.
Yeah.
And not going to give us the option to go there. So go ahead, Damien, and we'll work around you.
We could still take it.
Yeah, y'all can still take it because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. But after the Birmingham Stallions knock off the Michigan Panthers in the USFL Conference Championship game, I'm going to Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. 7:30 on ABC. That's my TD's Fine Furniture Super.
Yeah, nobody's watching that. All right, since you didn't do it, I'll go Panthers Stallions. TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the week. Really interested with Bryce Perkins having some time off. Does he just fit right back in? Birmingham pass rush, great. But Michigan has taken advantage of a lot of teams being out of position up front this year. They have some zone read stuff that's in. Keep in mind, Michigan runs some of their RPO game the way that like Malzahn used to run it at Auburn, and some of the stuff that Freeze does with the pop passes. Like their little pop passes can come very, very late in a play. And Birmingham can't be too far upfield. They can't be too far out of position. They can't get sucked up to the line of scrimmage because Bryce Perkins can hit those plays. And then you got to slow down the running game that Michigan brings to the table. And you got another new quarterback that's got to be able to go in and find a way to make some things happen. I think it's going to be a great game, 2 o'clock ABC, but it's right there at Protective Stadium. Birmingham, 1.5-point favorite in this game. And then I think DC St. Louis is going to be a good game, too. I like St. Louis in that one. They're a 2-point favorite. Not just that they're at home, but I think the matchup really favors what St. Louis brings to the table. So there's 2 Super Sofa games of the weekend. 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, ABC Fox. Just sit on your couch and watch live tackle football all day on Sunday.
Well, since you just took 2, I was going to take the other one. Now I'm totally left without. So I guess I'll just go off the grid and go with the
Canadian Open,
Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. That game's 7 o'clock tonight on TNT from Edmonton.
Sorry,
Cole's other Super Sofa game of the weekend are Bills Cowboys 93.
Yeah, every Cowboys game in the 90s.
I will go to hockey though, and I will see if Edmonton can go up 2-0 to try to bring Canada their first championship in 32 years. Maybe they can get halfway there with the win tonight. 7 o'clock on TNT.
As for me, I'm taking Game 2 of the Auburn Super Regional between Auburn and Coastal Carolina. One, because I don't know if I'll be able to stay up for the entirety of the first one going at 8 o'clock tonight, but mainly because I know they're winning that one, so I want to see them clinch their spot in the College World Series. So Saturday, 2 o'clock, ESPN2, Auburn, Coastal Carolina's my TD's Fine Furniture Super Sofa game of the weekend. And you can find your Super Sofa or furniture for the entire home at TD's Fine Furniture, now with a new closeout center that's open. Manufacturer's discounted items are marked down 50% or more, plus everyday great deals throughout the store at TD's Fine Furniture in Summerton.
All right, there's some breaking news we've got to get to. And I don't know how we didn't get this earlier today. Maybe they finish it up next on 3-Man Front. DeBoer's been fired.
Pete DeBoer.
DeBoer is out as head coach.
Pete DeBoer.
This is your team, Greg. Pete DeBoer is the head coach of your Dallas Stars. How do we not lead off with this today?
See?
Dang.
Why do we not lead with this?
Well, he went head-to-head with the goalie in the elimination game in the Western Conference Finals, and is a bit of a testy exchange. You yank the goalie, and the goalie's got pretty much a 10-year contract.
Hopefully put a different one in.
Yes, he did. That is
Okay,
accurate.
good.
Did not pull him at with
that's
10
why they
minutes
lost.
left in the first period. That would have
No
been
goalie
dicey.
protecting the goal. Okay.
It would have been a bold strategy, but that would not have worked very well. But yeah,
What
Pete
are you mad
DeBoer.
at a goalie for? Like, is he not in front of the net?
He's not stopping the puck. Usually a
That's
pretty bad spot to be in.
That will get it done for
Stop
you.
more, win more. That's all you need for the
Yes.
goalie.
Stop more,
Sounds
win
like
more.
It's a sound strategy.
What more do you need?
For me.
Are you mad about it? Should we talk about it on Monday's show?
who's on the short list. Who's up for the job?
Joe Neuendijk,
Yeah, old Joey.
No, who's the most famous Stars guy?
Mike Madonna.
Mike Madonna. Is he going to get it?
I don't think so. A-list. Doesn't need it.
In Dallas, maybe.
He was in Mighty Ducks.
Stop it. 3-Man Front is next. We're back Monday.